Hi, I'm Brent Stafford, and this is RegWatch by RegulatorWatch.com. We're here in Warsaw, Poland, for the Global Forum on Nicotine, the annual conference on safer nicotine products and tobacco harm reduction, celebrating their 10th anniversary this year. And joining me today is Martin Cullip. How are you, Martin?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah.
So you're one of our favorite guests. You're a prolific writer on harm reduction issues, and you write for Inside Sources and Center Square and Town Hall and Filter over the course of the years. We last had you on in February of this year regarding the WHO in COP10. Why don't you remind our viewers about what this meeting is and why it's important for vapers to know about it?
Well, it's held every 2 years. It's the World Health Organization's 10th Conference of the Parties to do with the Framework Convention of Tobacco Control, which is an international treaty. And this year there are a number of threats which could be on the agenda, which consumers need to know about. And so they really need to try and get involved, because all of the delegations for that meeting are being put together at the moment. And if we want to influence the delegations and what they do at the meeting, around now is the time to do it. The time is running out to get involved.
So remind me, is the US a signatory on the framework?
The US has signed the treaty but hasn't ratified it, which means it's not fully bound, legally bound to it. But what generally happens, the US does tend to follow what comes out of these meetings anyway. So it is important even for Americans to get involved, because if something gets passed at this meeting and it's legally binding on the countries that have ratified it, but you will probably find the US will follow down the same route anyway.
Now, Canada, of course, and the UK, and so many other countries are. I didn't know that it was legally binding. I thought that a country could decide whether to follow or not.
Well, it's legally binding and on those who sign it. But some countries may say, we don't want to do that. But the political pressure would be immense, because they would be saying to these countries, you sent a delegation to the meeting, you were there, all the decisions are made by consensus, so you made a decision along with the rest of us to do this. Why are you not doing it? And so that's kind of how the pressure would build on anyone who decided not to go ahead with any of the recommendations.
So let's put this in perspective for the vapers out there that are obviously familiar with the fact that there are anti-vaping people that are trying to annihilate this industry and the access and choice that vapers have. This is like the magnus opus. This is like the top of the top of the anti-vaping.
Yeah, and this meeting's particularly, this is a high-level meeting. Obviously, all of them are, but this is the first one that they've met in person since 2018 in Geneva. Of course, they were meant to have one in 2020. That was meant to be COP9, but because of the pandemic, it didn't happen. They postponed that till 2021, but because so many countries still had restrictions, they held that virtually, and they decided just to move everything onto COP10, because they said, we don't want to make decisions over Zoom, we want to make them face to face. So they've had, effectively, by the time of this meeting, 5 years to get their act together, to go for all the things they want to do to vaping and heated tobacco products and nicotine pouches as well, which are being mentioned in some of the reports.
So they're really going after tobacco harm reduction full square.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So based on our last conversation and what we kind of already know about it, let's talk about some of the things that they're going to have on the table. One of them being a ban on open systems.
That's right. Yeah, that's mentioned it was first mentioned in December 2020 that they want to ban open systems. But it's been mentioned in reports since. There's a report of the WHO study group, which came out in 2021, and that mentioned it, and it was quite clear about one of the recommendations they'd like to see is a ban on open systems. So that's definitely there. There's hints that they want to ban flavours, they want to ban nicotine salts, they want to regulate vaping products on what's called nicotine flux, which is the amount of nicotine you get out of a device over a period of time. And if they regulate that, you're talking about basically every product would be the same. Most recently, there was a report came out from the WHO study group where they studied a few papers and came out with some recommendations. And one recommendation was clear. It said that it should all the measures that are currently applied to conventional combustible cigarettes should be applied also to all nicotine delivery products. And it also spoke about banning advertising of nicotine pouches and treating nicotine pouches the same as other products which are similar, which obviously means snus. And if they want to do that, then they would be recommending, for example, the EU would ban nicotine pouches the same as they ban snus. So some of these things are coming out, and a lot of these proposals are going to be on the agenda when it's finally published in, hopefully towards the end of September, but sometimes that's late as well.
So we'll actually get that sneak peek in terms of the agenda.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're meant to produce all the reports 60 days before the meeting starts. But sometimes recently they've been late on that even. But when they come out, that's when the delegates will see what's going to be on an agenda and what they're going to be talking about, and we'll get to have a look at it as well. But by then, generally, it's too late. The delegations are mostly formed, they have their country positions. So consumers, if they want to get involved in the process and try and make their voice known to their representatives in each country, they have to start doing it now.
And then how do they do that?
Well, it's just simply the meeting is a meeting of the parties. The parties are national delegations from all the 182 signatory countries plus other members of the WHO who haven't ratified the treaty, and they all send delegations. And they're the ones that make the decisions at these meetings. It's not the FCTC Secretariat or the people who are administering the treaty, it's the national delegations. So to get to them, or get your point across to them, you have to obviously write to your government or write to your elected representative in your country and say, when that delegation is sent, can you please send someone on the delegation who knows about harm reduction? Can you please stand up to these threats? And that's the way you have to do it, through your national your national channels, if you like.
Now, how would you know who those people are to direct that communication to?
Well, you can write to, like in the UK, we have members of parliament. In America, it's congressmen and senators. You can write to those. You can write to. You can try and look up who's the person responsible for tobacco control policy in the Department of Health, or you can write to other departments. Sometimes we found some countries they don't talk to the Department of Health. Consumers have spoken to, say, for example, in the Philippines, they spoke to the Department of Trade and spoke to them instead. So any way you can get your message across to your government, you can do that. There's also a person in every country who's appointed to be a link between the national delegation and the WHO, who's called a focal point. You can try and find that online. There is a page where there are reports published for each country, and if you look on those reports, you should be able to find out who the focal point is. Just do a bit of Googling, if you like. And you can write to them, because they're meant to be passing information backwards and forwards between the FCTC Bureau and the regions, the WHO regions, and to the national governments, and also vice versa, back information the other way. So these are the people you need to talk to, but you have to do it in your own country, because we want the national delegations to go to this conference and make consensus decisions which don't harm vaping and other harm reduction products.
Now, in terms of some simple messaging, I guess, like one of the things that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but are they looking to redefine vapor to be smoke?
Yeah, this is a suggestion they've come up with. To redefine smoke to be anything that is a thermal, anything as an aerosol that's caused by a thermal reaction can be classified as smoke. So they're trying to make vapor be described as smoke. And the reason they're doing this is because the treaty specifically mentions that the terms of the treaty should apply to tobacco smoke. It just doesn't, because when it was written in 2003, vaping wasn't really around. And so that's what the treaty says, and they're trying to redefine smoke as makes vapor smoke, so that they can then say, well, that's smoke, so therefore it is in the remit of the Framework Convention Tobacco Control Treaty, and therefore we can apply all these measures to vaping as well as the same as we do with cigarettes.
Now that's some real sneaky beep.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fetch, but because that's how the treaty's written, that's what they're stuck with. You know, it was signed and ratified by all these countries back in 2003, and if they were to change the wording, then they'd have to go back and re-ratify it all over again, get everyone to sign it and ratify it again. So they're stuck with this treaty and the wording that it is. So they have to try and squeeze vaping into the wording of the FCTC, which is why they're looking to try and redefine smoke.
I think that's so criminal, that use of, if think about the FDA, right? They've actually deemed this piece of plastic to be a tobacco product. It feels like the same thing to me, right?
Yeah.
Is a Bic lighter a tobacco product? Well, if the FDA says it is.
Yeah, and by their definition, presumably if you're cooking a chili or something on the hob, and it emits some steam, that's a thermal reaction creating a visible aerosol, so therefore that must be called smoke as well. But
yeah, like what about a humidifier?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's just crazy. Well, so what has been the reaction in terms of your efforts over the last several months to get people activated along this lines? Is it going well?
Yeah, I've been trying to speak to as many consumers as I can. We had a meeting here a couple of days ago in Warsaw of consumers, and we were throwing around ideas and discussing this, and I was just trying to highlight some of the problems that are coming down the track and how important COP10 is. So it was quite a constructive meeting, and I think they've gone away with some good ideas. And basically the biggest thing is to share this information with as many consumers as possible, so as many people know about it, because this meeting, as we've spoken about before, is extremely secret. It's all done behind closed doors. Not many people know about it. It's not like the climate change COPs where it's all across the news. This is done very, very hush-hush. So we need as many consumers as possible to know what the threats are, to know that the meeting is taking place, first of all, and how it can affect them. And it can affect in every country across the world, apart from just a handful who haven't yet signed it. But even the United States of America, like I said, although they haven't actually ratified it, they've signed the treaty, and they do go to the conferences and they sit in on the meetings and they have input into the meetings. And they were likely to be swayed by if anything bad that comes out, because over the years, almost all the things that have come out of the COP meetings have ended up being applied in America anyway.
Wow, and there's that one great American who's spending a lot of money on nudging the WHO along these lines.
Yeah, of course, yeah, he's actually funded WHO reports in the past, and they're quite open about it. They say this report was funded by Bloomberg philanthropists. So yeah, his minions are all across this meeting, and if you see how the attitude of the WHO has changed since about 2018, when they were making quite sensible suggestions towards reduced risk products, to the way they are now, what's changed it? Who knows? Could it be the influence of Bloomberg or what? We don't know. But they have got much more hostile towards harm reduction, and it's going to come out in COP10. As I said, the mother of all COPs, 5 years since the last in-person meeting, and the last time they were talking in sensible terms about vaping. They're not talking in sensible terms about vaping now.
Is there any resource online, that you know of that you're working with, where people could go to get some more information on this?
Well, the new Nicotine Alliance in the UK has done a campaign, call to action. So have So Vape, which is a French consumer association, and ANPVU in Italy. You could try and find those, you could Google those. But generally, if you're on Twitter, if you find the consumers that talk about COP, you look for the hashtags and you'll see plenty of things on social media. But yeah, generally you have to have a look around for it. But just keep an eye out for news on COP10. And it should increase as we get nearer to the conference. There should be more and more information about it, and hopefully you can find out about it and do something about it.